With about 63% demography of youths in Nigeria's population, young and aspiring politicians, particularly parliamentarians, are yearning for more youth representation and, by extension, dedicated seats in the legislature. These, they admitted, will be a true reflection of the provisions of the Not Too Young to Run Act, as assented by former President Muhammadu Buhari in 2018. On this episode of the program, we shall reflect on the effectiveness of the Not Too Young to Run bill since its ascent into an act of the Parliament, as young lawmakers across the Federation will be sharing their views with us. I then welcome you to your favorite parliamentary program, your Parliamentarians showing on NTA Parliament. Abuja, I'm Joshua Ogujide, your host. Don't go away. Welcome back. Nigeria's 2023 general election is the second general election since the amendment of the 1999 constitution to reduce the age qualification for running for office in Nigeria, popularly known as the Not Too Young to Run Act. The legislation addressed a major constitutional impediment to youth participation by reducing the age criteria for the president from 40 to 35 years, House of Representatives from 30 to 25 years, and State House of Assembly from 30 to 25 years. The political establishment began the journey of changing the political participation outlook of Nigeria. The surge in youth candidacy and youth representation in federal and state legislatures is directly linked to the Not Too Young to Run legislation and the rise in youth political awakening. Since 2015, General Elections report reveals three dominant trends on youth participation in politics in the last three election cycles. First, political parties nominate more youth candidates for legislative elections at the state level than executive or National Assembly seats. The political reality suggests that legislative offices at the state level offer better opportunities for young people to contest and win elections. Secondly, while youth demography is the highest on the National Register of Voters, youth candidacy hardly influences youth turnout. Thirdly, youth candidates nominated by established political parties are more likely to win elections than youth candidates sponsored by less established parties. Youth candidacy declined in the 2023 general election as analysis of INEC's candidate data shows that youth candidacy plunged from 34% in 2019 to 28.6% in 2023. The youth maintained dominance as the largest demography on the voter register, but a minority on the list of candidates on the ballot. 18 political parties sponsored 15,336 candidates in the 2023 elections. Of this figure, only 4,398 were young people, representing 28% youth candidacy. Interestingly, 43.2% of the youth candidates between age 25 and 30 are direct beneficiaries of the Not Too Young to Run Act. Youth candidacy for House of Representatives declined from 27.4% in 2019 to 21.6% in 2023. Similarly, youth candidacy for State House of Assembly also dropped from 41.8% in 2019 to 35.6% in 2023. The poorest representation of youth in the House of Representatives was recorded in 2015 when only 3 out of 360 members were youth, representing 0.3% of elected legislators. Youth representation was high in the State Houses of Assembly with 57 youths. That means 6% occupying seats in various state legislative houses. Let's hear the views of young parliamentarians on this development.
I would say that this bill is one of the most timely initiatives in the history of democracy, particularly to us as Africans and Nigerians, where we as youths are given limitless opportunity to run for any political office to represent the interests of our people in public service. Therefore, I would say that given the demography of we culminating to 60% of the total population of this country, we have what it takes. We should actually be considered and we should have a place and a stake in the policy making and day-to-day running of our society. First, I am calling on the youth to actively build a reputation that represents public standard, to be able to sit in the helms of affairs, to air out their submissions without any limitation of youthful exuberance. Here on the plateau, I must commend His Excellency, the Executive Governor of the state, for considering a good number of youths into his cabinet. And even at the State House of Assembly, we have the youngest speaker, I think, in the whole of this country, been 33 years. He has actually been up and doing, and he has outbroken the records of all past speakers in the history of Plateau State. Therefore, I would say that if the youths are given opportunity, it will go a long way.
Looking at the last two elections that we had, the 2019 and the 2023 general election, we can see it produces some young people. If we look at the instance of Kwara State, we have which is an elected position. The Speaker of the state is a young person, still in his mid-30s. And if we look at the Speaker of Oyo and that of Osun State, this is to tell you that since its passage, there have been some obvious action from people being elected to offices.
The last election that was contested and that was done as of 2023, most of these young persons won their elections and they are in offices. The impact of young people in politics is driving Nigeria forward to where we are today. Likes of the Honorable Minister for Youth, essay on youth to Mr. President, Titi Lope, and even the son of Mr. President, Sheikh Tinubu. Seeing them very active in politics gives hope to Nigeria.
That law has performed well since it was enacted, in the sense that it has given a lot of young people the opportunity to aspire, that process of aspiring to run for office, the process of declaring to run for that office, purchasing the form, running the course of your campaign, and all of that. This would not have been possible. Young people would not have had the courage, would not have dared to take on that course if that law was not made. And some have won elections into offices while others have continued to try, and more will continue to try. The only issue is that political parties hold the power. Political parties hold the responsibility to drive this process of youth inclusion in government. Because if political parties do not, give a fair process, do not give a fair cost for young people to be able to access the forms, the nomination forms, and all of that, it will continue to be an issue. For instance, in Lagos, the local government elections are around the corners. I personally, coming from a think tank point of view, recommend that young people should dominate local governments. How do I mean? If you look at it today, young people are energetic, young people are the community organizers, young people are the volunteers. Why can't we then take, I don't want to say control, but why don't we take majority role in the local government, right? At least 2/3 of the elective and appointive offices in the local government should go to young people. That way we can begin to learn, the process. Even if you make mistakes at that level, it's costly, yes, but it's not going to be as costly as when young people go inexperienced and then all of a sudden you get into the House of Reps. That local government level is also closest to the people, and it needs the most attention, as a matter of fact. And I believe young people have the energy, the courage to drive this process. So in the case of Lagos, that is having local government elections coming up sometime in July, I think the political parties, especially the APC, should give young people the opportunity to run.
There was remarkable shift in the 2019 elections when 3% of the 360 seats in the House of Representatives and 80% of the 991 seats in the state assemblies were won by young people between 25 to 35 years. Despite the decline in youth candidacy in the 2023 election, The level of youth representation in the legislature improved slightly compared to the 2015 and 2019 elections. Based on the IPU threshold for youth, 6 seats in the Senate are occupied by young people under 45 years from 6 states, while 102 young elected representatives in the House of Representatives are between the ages of 25 to 45. Let's hear from the Red Chamber.
For me, I think not too young to run, or whatever the motion is more on the possibility of removing the qualified age for any Nigerian to contest election by dropping it to meet more of the younger persons qualified to contest. I think it's more about that. But I feel even moving that is not a sufficient reasons for us to see more youths being engaged in legislative matters. I believe that the demographic strata of our country desires that every sector of the age of Nigerians in each of the category of ages as classified should have representative people representing them. I'm saying so because at each period of your life, you continue to have changes in your feelings. The younger ones, their temperament, what they go through is different from the person from age 20 to 20, or let's say 18 to 20 or to 25 or 30. Their temperament may be different from those from above 30 to 40. And their temperament and feelings and desires may be different from those from 40 maybe to 50, and from 50 to 60, and so on and so forth. Now, if we're not fairly represented at each level of age, if there are no representation in the legislative business, we may miss out the feelings of a huge quantity of Nigerians that probably their feelings, nobody's around to explain how they feel. And so that whatever law we're bringing, it should be in such a way that will accommodate them. So for me, I feel I said yes, a step forward to reduce the age, the qualified age for Nigerians to contest election is accommodative, but it may not be enough. I have been to Rwanda, and Rwanda have a dedicated seat for youths. That seat is for youths. 4 seats in the National Assembly for youths, 2 for females, and 2 for the males. And they have a way of choosing those that will represent that dedicated seat. And those coming from those dedicated does not necessarily belong to a party. Their party is the association of youths. The youth can decide who would represent them at that level. And then you now know that somebody has been sent from a particular group with a particular expectation. But if you just drop down the age and say instead of the qualified age is from 30 to go to House Assembly or to go to National Assembly is from 35 to 40, but now you drop it from 30 and above. You have given an opportunity for younger ones to contest, but you're not actually giving that seat to them. So they may still contest with somebody who is 70 years. They may still contest with somebody that is at a particular age. So for me, it would have been much, much more better to have a dedicated seat for youths, where it will be their duty to select among themselves who would be their ear at that level. So that's my thinking. And in our country, you know that in our demographic data, youths are about 70% of the population of the country. And if we don't have a dedicated seat for them, I feel that if we only allow them to contest amongst the many, because of economic opportunities, it might be very tough. Although at the present time, most of our youths are economically buoyant, they can stand it. But why can't we have a dedicated seat for the youths? Well, I, from the definition of a youth, I don't think we have a youth at the red chamber, because Nigerian classification of youth is anybody below 30. Now, from 18 to 30 are classified as youths. But the African Youth Charter qualifies anybody from 18 to 35, or maybe from 18 or 20 to 35 years. At the Senate, I have not seen a senator that is not older than 35 years. So in the Senate, I don't think there are younger senators, but from the classification of a youth, I don't think we have a youth at the Senate, because Nigerian classification of a youth is someone between less than 30 years. But the African Charter is that a youth is somebody who is not more than 35 years. I think that all the senators, there's nobody that is below 35 years in the Senate. Well, my Green Chamber counterpart, we may have, I've seen an Igbo chap that is below. I've seen some from Kaduna, El Rufai's son, who is below, might be below 35, but I cannot give you the percentage of youths that are in the National Assembly. But I want to believe that it will be a very low ratio, considering the population of youths in our country called Nigeria. If we go by population, we're supposed to have more of the number of youths in the Green Chamber than probably what we're assuming. But again, the Red Chamber is for the elderly too. So we've already defined that to be for the elderly. But again, it doesn't stop youths from coming in, and because the decisions we make at all the National Assembly chambers will have impact on youths, and therefore it would not be a bad thing to have some of them contributing on critical decisions that have to be made and policies that have to be made. In the National Assembly, the younger ones are more favored. Within the principal officers, we have the younger ones in age, both from the majority party. We have Patrick Patrick from Inugu, from Ibonyi. He's a young chap. And even from the opposition, we have Senator Osita. He's a young chap by age. And the other younger chap that is in the Senate, Senator Asuko, he holds very important committees, a chairman, Senate Committee on NNDC, and he is in most of the very important committees. We have also Senator Jim Kuta, who is also young, who is a chairman, Senate Committee on local government, FCT, is it local government? We have two committees on FCT, which is a very good committee. I believe that Senator Natasha is young. I want to assure you that she had all opportunities, privileges in the Senate too. I have not seen any of the younger ones left out. It's more of the older ones that are left out. It's so engaging for the younger ones, but they are not youths. From the duration of youths, none of them is less than 35 years. If we would want to use the African Youth Charter, and if we're using the Nigerian definition of a youth, which ends at 30, I don't think we have a youth at the Red Chamber. But the younger ages are well favored.
In the National Assembly, the consideration should be actually higher. We should actually see 60% of the lawmakers as youths, both the Green and Red Chamber. This will go a long way in bringing the strength, the initiative, and the 21st century ideology of the youths into play.
In total, the House of Rep has 50 members who are under the age of 45, In the Senate, there are 6 senators who are under the age of 45, and interestingly, 2 of them are female. So this shows the statistics of young people, fairly young people, although we define young people as those that are under 35, but fairly you can still say these are young people by our cultural standards. Although this has to be data driven, so we should peg it at 35. And we can still do better. I mean, a lot of young people continue to aspire, but like I said earlier, the cost of nomination forms, the mindset of the elders, the leaders to say, okay, young people can actually do this, also goes a long way. And I believe if they test young people at the local government level, they would see that indeed a lot of young people are capable of running affairs or being involved in these discussions. So if you look at the House of Assemblies too, I think in total across House of Assemblies, we have about 92 young people across the 36 House of Assemblies in the country who are under the age of 35. So young people are mostly first timers in the House of Reps, in the National Assembly, and as such, they still need to humble themselves to learn from the more experienced legislators in the House. They have to mold consensus. It's not just about what you want when you have about 360 members or 109 members. It has to be about consensus. And so you cannot say, oh, because you are young, this is what you want, you have your way. These are some of the limitations that affects the participation of young people in the system. And of course, there's a culture, there's a standard, there's a practice, and you cannot just get into a place and say you want to change it overnight. So you still have to humble yourself, learn, network, form alliances. And unfortunately, sometimes the young people that are in the system, they may not all be from the same ideology or from the same party. That also makes it more difficult, right? So this ultimately calls for inclusion of more young people in the system, election of more young people in the system, not just young people because they are young people because they have been tested and trusted, young people because they are people of integrity, young people because they made something out of themselves before they aspire, to go into national development. So these are some of the things that affect young people's participation. But ultimately, it's important for more young people to be involved, to be elected into the House of Reps, House of Assembly, because then when critical issues that affect young people are being discussed, or bills or laws, these people can use their numbers, their position, their knowledge, their being young, their being part of the people that are affected, to influence the needed change in that process.
Code of conduct contains how you behave, how activities are being done in the house, be it during sittings or any other activities. And as a lawmaker or a parliamentarian, it is very important you understand your code of conduct, because it comes together with even the Nigerian Constitution. So once you understand your code of conduct and you understand what it means for you to be called a distinguished honorable or a distinguished senator, you package the way you behave. And if you should package the way you behave very well, there won't be any room for intimidation. You won't be intimidated, because if you are being oppressed, it becomes abuse of power from whosoever is trying to oppress you. So on that note, I'm of the opinion that ever since the establishment of or the introduction of bringing young politicians into the political system in Nigeria since 2018, I don't think most of these young legislative members have been oppressed, except they on their own abuse their own privileges, abuse the right of being an honorable member, or they abuse the right of being a distinguished senator. As an honorable member, you must have dignity, integrity, and once you have those things, nobody will intimidate you, in as much as you know your rights. So that is my stand on that. I don't think there have been any room for intimidation, except that particular honorable member, that particular distinguished senator, that particular young parliamentarian abused the privilege he had.
The true reflection of this bill in Nigerian political structure has been mixed. While the law has led to increased youth participation, the power dynamics within the political party, young people not supporting young candidates, the influence of money in politics remain significant barriers. Many young people still struggle to compete with financial resources, lack of support from young voters who happen to have the majority presence on the voters register, and the political network of older and more established politicians.
Time now to pause for some messages. The conversation continues shortly. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you just join us, the program is Young Parliamentarians showing on NT Parliament, Abuja. You can join the conversation via the platform scrolling on your screen. We'll be discussing the reflection of the Not Too Young to Run Act in the political structure of Nigeria since its ascent. Women representation remains abysmally low across the national and state houses of assembly. Out of the 93 members elect across legislative houses at subnational level, only 4 were women.
At the state level, nearly 15 out of the 36 states in Nigeria currently have no female representative in their state house. However, people like Senator Natasha Akpoti made history as the first elected female senator from our state, which is Kogi State. There are also notably development and positive signs of change, as in the 2023 election, 4 young female legislators recorded history wins under 35 female legislators recorded historic wins in the general election, which made someone like Honorable Rukayashi to Kampara State, a 26-year-old, to emerge as the youngest female lawmaker in Nigeria. Additionally, in Nigeria, We have never had a female president of the Senate. We only had one female Speaker of the House of Representatives, and it was short-lived. We have never recorded a female governor in Nigeria.
The target is not met yet, and then it is obvious that there are still some developments in that regard. Just like I said, I'm a young person. The youngest female legislator elected during the 2023 general election. And then I have a colleague in Nasarawa State, which we have the same age bracket when we ran in 2023. I think he's the deputy speaker of Nasarawa State of Assembly. And then even if we look at the Confederation of speakers in Nigeria, I don't know the acronym. I don't really know the acronym, but there is an existing organization of speakers forum in Nigeria. Is being led by a young person. This is to tell you that there is a much influence from the younger generation in their forum, which the Speaker of Oyo State is heading. And then we have so many instances like that, but still the target is not met yet, because there are still just a lot of space that needs to be occupied by young people.
Young women aspire and they also vie for offices. But it's a project to be driven by the political parties, like I said about the youth participation. Currently, the number of young people in government, in politics, in elective offices is limited, and that is not good enough. If we are to talk about classification, politics or leadership is not about gender, to be very candid. It's not even about age. It's about competence. It's about popularity. And that is not to say that all the men that hold these offices at the moment are competent or are people of integrity. No. But the point is, and this is frankly speaking, if women really, really, really want to come on board and they want to take their place, then they must prove themselves. I'm not saying that women should prove themselves because the men are proving themselves. No, don't get me wrong. I'm saying that women must show that they are coming to offer something different, not coming to take their parts in what the men are doing, and not coming to play their own part of what the men who may not be performing are doing, right? So it must be seen that, women are actually a breath of fresh air. Women are actually being affected by the numerous challenges we have in society. And so when you give them one chance, one woman who is given one chance is a breath of fresh air, and then gives opportunity for so many more women, to come on board. And so it's a case for the political parties to drive in. It's a case for the women to also hold on. Women should use their numbers. There are a lot of women. Every now and then you see the women leader, the women win, the market women, the this and that, the women in the corporate, they also hold high places. They need to use their numbers, they need to use their expertise to negotiate for themselves. During the elections, they will come to them. So they should also demand from the political parties to say, okay, give us so percentage. Out of all the 1,000 funds that are going to be sold, we want 500 to be sold to women, or we want 400 to be sold to women, or we want 600 to be sold to women, whatever way, they should use their numbers to negotiate. So overall, youth and women participation in governance and politics is not negotiable. And we would appreciate that this is seen as a cause for concern amongst all stakeholders across the country.
The underrepresentation of women in Nigeria's political structures has remained a pressing concern, with women holding less than 5% of legislative seats after the 2023 general elections, far below the global average of 26.5%. So it is clear that intentional action is overdue. We are here today to focus our energies on a significant legislative opportunity, the Special Seats Bill, currently before the National Assembly. I'll say before the House of Representatives, even though at the Senate, it has passed the first reading. We are looking at harmonizing the bills so that the Senate and the House of Reps will, have one bill. We don't want a situation one house will pass it and then the other sector will not do that. So this bill proposes to create special seats for women as a temporary but necessary corrective measure Its passage will not only strengthen the presence of women in national and state legislatures, but also set a precedent for inclusive governance that reflects diversity of Nigeria's population. The bill is designed to fast-track women's political representation, to move from incremental gains to substantial growth. As Nigeria practices the first-past-the-post electoral system, this bill has been designed to suit our political and electoral context, providing for seat reservations, women-only seats, because only women compete for such reserved seats, and they do not displace male elites, contrary to popular belief among the political elite. In fact, I attended a program where a very senior member of the Senate called me out and said, Madam Iberi, I don't understand what you're doing. Whose seats are you targeting? I said, sir, your seats are intact, well protected. We're just saying special seats. He said, really? I said, yes. There's something like that. I said, yes. He said, okay, let's talk about it later. So you see, we need to make them understand that their seats are intact. They are comfortable where they are. But we are just saying, shift a little and create special seats for women. So this bill seeks to amend sections 48, 49, and 91 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to create 74 seats in the National Assembly and 108 seats in the State's House of Assembly altogether, bring the total number of seats to 182 seats in the legislative arm of government, this time looking at the National and the House of Assembly. Though the number of these seats alone will not raise our percentage to 30% representation, it will be a far-reaching improvement from the less than 5% which we currently have. More so, the passage of this bill does not restrict our female politicians from contesting for the already existing seats in the assemblies, and we hope that our collective efforts targeted towards the 2027 general elections will be able to further increase our percentage. As the intent of this bill is to provide for a temporary specific measure to fast-track women's political participation in Nigeria, the seats will be tenured for a specific amount of years and may be reviewed by the National Assembly. This is also very contentious. It's also an area that we all have to look at and agree on, the number of years before it can be reviewed. For me, taking into cognizance that it may not be very easy for us to get it out again. So we have to, do something that will be a kind of lasting, have a lasting impact. I believe this bill is not new to most, if not all of us present here today. And to this extent, our agenda for today is clear: to assess the opportunities and challenges surrounding the bill, refine our strategies for national and grassroots advocacy, and to coordinate our efforts to ensure the bill gains the support it needs in both houses of the National Assembly and across at least 24 state houses of assembly. The next few months, from May to August, will be decisive. The demand from us as a united voice, strategic action and fervent commitment, that is what we need. We must have a common and united voice. We don't want to see an organization speaking to the left, another side is speaking to the right, and things like that. They will capitalize on that, and that will destroy what we are doing. So we must engage our representatives in the National Assembly, mobilize citizens, raise critical awareness, amplify grassroots support, coordinate efforts, and ensure that women, including young women and women with disabilities, are not just participants, but leaders in shaping the future of our democracy. Let it not be said that the story of March 2022 repeats itself, for we can all agree that various efforts have been put in by a lot of us at individual and organization capacities to ensure that the Special Seats Bill becomes a reality.
The Special Seats Bill was actually introduced in the 9th National Assembly by Honorable Nkiru Onyejocha, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, the current Chief of Staff to the President, and other members. We must give them that recognition. At that point, the bill was seeking, or it sought for 37 seats in the Senate for women, and then 74 seats in the House for women. Part of the failures of that bill was the idea of cost of governance. And that was why in this 10th Assembly, the advice came up that we should bring the House down to 37, such that it will be 37 in the Senate, 37 in the House, and a total of 74 in the National Assembly. But today, I think that decision was not proper. So, in this 10th National Assembly, my principal, the Deputy Speaker, Right Honorable Benjamin Carlo, and 12 other members sponsored the bill, including late Oriyomi Onanoga. The woman was so passionate about this bill. And as God will have it, she's no longer here with us to see to the success of the bill. But I know her spirit is with us, and he will fight on until we succeed. Other women include Blessing Onu, Chinwe Clara Nabuife, and the ever-strong and articulate Khadija Bukar Ibrahim. I want to ask, which section of the country do you think will kick against this bill? In honesty, what do you think? Southwest. Okay, any other answer? The South or North? Okay. The North. Good. The South. Anyway, for me as a person, I thought the North would kick against the bill. I thought. And in the process leading to the passage of the bill at the second reading level, I prepared, okay, waiting for responses from the North. Okay, but incidentally, on that day, on the floor of the House, the stiffest opposition we had was from the South. And the biggest support we had from the North. That's the truth. Yes. So this bill essentially is made up of 7 sections, so 8 sections, and primarily seeks to alter Section 48 of the Constitution, Section 49, Section 71, Section 77, Section 91, and then Section 117. Principally and primarily, what does it seek to achieve? To adjust the number of seats in our parliament. The National Assembly being a bicameral legislature consisting of the House of the Senate and the House of Representatives. With special recognition to my brother and friend, I want to make this thing clear. There are certainly little things that offend certain people if you are having conversation with them. I have heard repeatedly lower and upper house. Okay? Now, if you say so before Nigeria's House of Representatives, believe me, whatever you're looking for, you will not get it. That is the atmosphere, the mentality around that sector. The House will tell you that the Constitution recognizes the Senate and the House of Representatives as equal chambers. None is higher, while the other one is lower. So in having a conversation with the House, in your advocacy visits to the House, go with this line, not upper and lower chambers. So now essentially it is to create this additional number of seats. Like Section 48, 49 describes the Senate to have 109 seats. The House of Representatives, 360 seats. Now, for the Senate, the bill seeks to provide for additional 37. And these 37 seats are meant to come from 1 seat from each state, and then 1 seat from the Federal Capital Territory, making 37. Let me quickly say that this effort is not to confer any advantage to the woman, because if this is approved and passed, you will find out that a man contesting for a seat in the Senate might actually spend 1/3 of what a woman contesting for this special seat will spend. Because the woman covers the entire state, whereas the Senate, a man, his constituency covers, or the regular constituency covers 1/3 of the state. So it could actually be 3 times the cost of running an election for a woman. So there is no advantage whatsoever. You will now understand why I believe that we should have requested for more. Then the same thing happens to the House of Representatives, 1 per state, and then 1 for the FCT. But as we all know, states like Kano, Lagos have 24 seats. So what it will cost a woman in Kano to contest for that special seat might actually be what it would cost 24 seats. Let me not say for men, because those other seats are equally there for both men and women. So it could cost 24 times to contest that in Kano. In places like Bayelsa or Nasarawa states, where you have 5 seats alone, it could cost 5 times. It could. I'm not saying it will, but it could. So, given this number of additional seats in the National Assembly, at the state level, each state House of Assembly would have additional 3 seats reserved for women. And these 3 seats will be 1 to represent each senatorial zone in the state. So where in a senatorial zone, like where I come from, my own senatorial zone has about 5, 6 seats in the State Assembly. It means that that woman that would contest for that special seat will be spending what it will cost 6 other persons to contest in that same space. Again, I say there is no advantage whatsoever. So this is essentially what this bill seeks to achieve. Then, as a temporary measure, it will last for 4 election cycles, which is 16 years. This is what we have in the House of Representatives. Okay, so towards the end of the 16 years if passed, then a determination could be made as to whether to remove that, or to increase, or to maintain, or to retain. So, just like I keep saying, that these 37 additional seats in the Senate will only bring the number of seats in the Senate to 146. And it means that women will occupy 25.3% of the seats in the Senate, minimum. If women are able to win other seats, apart from those reserved for women, then the figures could increase. But basic is 25.3%. Then additional 37 seats in the House will bring the number of seats in the House to 397 seats. And this means that women will occupy only 9.3% of the seats in the House minimum. Then cumulatively, Additional 74 seats will bring the number of seats in the Senate to 543 seats, meaning 13.6%. No, in the Senate and the House, in the National Assembly as a whole, 13.6%. So it's still a far cry. So, what is it? What this bill is all about? Just to provide special reserved seats for constituencies where only women will contest. It is meant to encourage and raise the number of women participation in decision-making and governance. Women contesting for such seats will run for elections in larger constituencies. Like I've just described, the constituencies would be large. But that does not mean that such a woman that becomes a senator, occupying that special seat in the Senate, that doesn't in any way confer to her the powers of a governor. She may be popular as a governor, because her constituency is the same as that of a governor, but she is not a governor and cannot be said and cannot be seen to exercise the powers of a governor, and should not in any way be mistaken to have such, because some people will begin to think, popularity issues is not at all. So it's a deliberate effort to bridge a gap. Then I want to say what it is not. It is not meant to challenge the male folk. It's not a challenge at all in any way. And suffice it to say that when some of them say that, is it my seat you want to drag? My response to some of them is that even the seat you think it's yours is not yours. It doesn't belong. I think if I am right, it is only one man that has occupied a seat in the National Assembly since 1999 till now. His elder brother. Only. So it's not anybody's personal seat. So that you are in that seat for today, you're occupying that seat for today, does not make it become yours. So it's a free space for all. Okay, so in no way it is not a challenge to the men folk. It is not meant to deny the male or the male folk their rights, because it is not a right in the first instance. And it is meant, again, to ensure that we tap into the abundant human resources locked within our women. I know that we cannot limp. If our two legs are normal and functional, we will run. We'll be able to gain speed. But when we are standing on just one leg, what happens? Progress will be slow. The same thing with our hands. So it is better we tap into the abundant human resources we have amongst our women.
This report adopts 18 to 35 years as the youth age bracket, in line with the African Youth Charter. However, in certain instances, the analysis extends the age benchmark to 45 years due to inter-parliamentary union classification of young parliamentarians as legislators under 45 years. Although the youth population seemed to maintain dominance as the largest demography on the voter register, but a minority on the list of candidates on the ballot, the narrative stakeholders believe will change for better in the next set of polls. That brings us to the end of this week's episode of the program, Young Parliamentarians. For comments and inquiries, you can follow us on the platforms showing on your screen. See you next time on this same channel for another package. Again, I'm Joshua Okutile. Bye for now.